We're going to get started, everyone. Thanks so much for being here this evening, and thanks, Greg Judy. Some of you have heard me say this 3 times now, so I'm so sorry. But big thank you to Greg Judy for coming to the Maritimes to share his experiences and knowledge with us, and thanks, Katie, for organizing a lot of this and most of it, everything. My name is Georgia, and I work with the On-Farm Climate Action Fund, which is a federal initiative that supports farmers in climate-safe practices. So we have 3 BMPs that we're focusing on: nitrogen management, cover cropping, and rotational grazing. So perfect opportunity to have Greg here and talk about rotational grazing and livestock and everything that comes with it, so thank you. And we're also collaborating with Farmers for Climate Solutions. They're focusing on the same BMPs throughout the country as well, and they have a great learning hub if you ever want to check it out and get some more resources on the 3 BMPs. So with that, warm welcome for Greg Judy.
I just want to thank Katie and Georgia, Jonathan, you're all on the back, 2 young ladies on the back, and my tech guy back there. Without him, there wouldn't be a PowerPoint tonight. He had the right tool. So yeah, we come to you from Central Missouri. My wife Jan and I, we run a grazing operation in mid-Missouri. We've been doing this for quite a few years. We were very conventional, so we did everything the experts told us to do. We bought the land, or the bank did. The bank bought the land, they bought the cattle. I went and got a loan for the equipment. And folks, Jan and I both work 40 hours a week in town. And so we were doing this on the side, and things didn't go so well. We were doing what everybody told us to do. You got to feed cattle grain in the wintertime to make them so they don't lose weight. And you need a big old calf at weaning. You got to get those big calves. So that's what we were focused on. And after 1 year of that, I'm like, well, this is not any fun. It's better to do nothing and make nothing than to do something and make nothing. And so that woke me up pretty quick. So we started being very unconventional. So the article that I read in the Stockman Grass Farmer by On Nation changed my whole life. And it said, your sole purpose in life should not be to own the land, but to control it. And basically he's talking about leasing land. And folks, I grew up in this area. I was born in northern Minnesota on a dairy farm. We moved to mid-Missouri in 1965, and that's where I've been ever since. And I'd never thought about leasing, and all this land's around me. Nobody's on it. Nobody lives on it. And long story short, we started leasing this land, and that's kind of what got us going. So we were able to build our numbers. Well, the land that we leased, folks, it was very unproductive. That's why we got it. Nobody else wanted it. It didn't have any fence. It didn't have any water. It had a lot of brush on it. Didn't have very good grass on it. And there just wasn't a lot of infrastructure there. Well, I found out on our leasing journey that the less that is there, the more I like it. The more I like it. You know why? Because if you go lease a land that's got a corral, a good hard surface road, good fencing, it's got water points, everything's there. You don't have any bargaining power at all on getting that lease, because everybody and their dog wants it. When you go on a piece of land that needs some tender loving care, now I've got something I can offer the landowner. And so that's what we've done. Today we've got several farms that we lease, and now we own several of these farms. But I'm telling you folks, there's nothing wrong with owning land. Absolutely nothing. But it's a tough way to start out. If you don't have a lot of income, save that money that you can manage to put together and buy livestock with it. Buy livestock. And get your arms around some land, a lease. If you're just starting out, you're not real good with livestock yet, I would look at getting a small piece of ground, get some fence on it, put a water point out there, and play with that. Or go to work for somebody that's already doing it. So we didn't have any money to go. We took soil tests on a lot of these farms, and we couldn't go out and put down what the soil test called for. Folks, our pH there at Clark, Missouri, Our pH is in the 4.8 to 5.5, very acidic. We grow good cedar trees. We do. Cedar trees and moss, a lot of moss. You tell me how you make a living on cedar trees and moss in a livestock grazing. You can't. So I'm like, okay, so we started custom grazing other people's cattle. So other people would buy the hay, we would winter their cattle on our leased farms. So they were buying the carbon source, that's what hay is, it's a carbon source. We were bringing that fertility onto these leased farms, they were buying the hay. And we would winter their cattle on other people's farms. So basically what Jan and I were, we were a contractor and we just took care of cattle on other people's land. And so we built our fertility up over years, built our nest egg up, got out of debt, and started buying animals. Today, everything we have is owned. We don't have any more debt. So what are we in the business of? We're in the business of collecting solar energy. Let's just keep it really simple, folks. I'm a simple guy. Okay, I don't have a PhD. High school, 12th grade, that was my education. I worked in town for 29 years. 29 years, yep. At about the 20-year level, I went through a terrible divorce. And thank goodness I met Jan. She didn't cause the divorce, by the way. I want to put that out there. But I met Jan, and I don't care who you are, if you got that other partner pulling in the same direction that you're going, it makes it a lot easier. If you both have the same passion. And Jan had the passion. And so I had the understanding of grazing. I'd been to Jim Garish's workshop in University of Missouri. Used to have they still have it up there. It's a research farm, 1,500 acres. And Jim was teaching this management intensity grazing thing. Now, I went to that class in 1991. I came home, I was so excited. For the first time in my life, I was like, you know what? I think this grazing thing's got something going for it. You don't have to plant it. You don't have to plant it every year. You don't have to buy the seed. You don't need all this equipment. And I've always hated equipment. I hate it. Because I'm not a very mechanically inclined. So when it breaks, I've got to bring it in. Somebody's got to fix it. That costs money. And I had an old guy tell me, he said, Greg, if you'll save your money and put it into anything, I don't care, anything that eats a green blade of grass and gives you a baby every year, you'll always come out. No matter what the cattle cycle or the sheep cycle or the goat cycle price does, you're always going to come out. Just don't buy metal. And that's when I listened to that old guy, and he was right. He was right. So that's all they're doing. They're harvesting energy. We sell that in a product that other people can eat. Or in this instance, those are all breeding bulls. Folks, those are our macho bulls. So those would be 3-year-olds. They sell for $8,000 a piece. That's what they start at. Okay, we auction them on our website. I'm the auctioneer. How do I auction? I just take an email. So if you want to bid on one, you send me an email. The last bidder gets them. That's how we sell our bulls. We started that several years ago because people would come into our herd. And, we're running around anywhere from 380 to maybe 500 animals. They're like, well, you got some pretty good young bulls out there. You ever thought about selling them? I'm like, everything in here is for sale. And that's how we got started. So today we sell out, and on bulls, they last about 2 weeks. And everybody comes and gets their bull June 1st. We are microbe farmers, so what we're doing is we're taking really rank soil, and we're using these guys, or girls, that could be cows, whatever. We're using the feet, it could be sheep. You can do this with sheep too, folks. We're beating up the land with the feet. So you have this beautiful cloven hoof. And folks, when it goes down on the ground, it spreads out like that. And so it's literally cutting the carbon and the litter into pieces for the earthworms and the microbes. Because earthworms, they don't walk around on stilts. You got to get this stuff on the ground. And when you do, you get this explosion of earthworm casting. So, we are microbe farmers. It starts down in the soil. It doesn't start in the grass, and it doesn't start at the cow. It starts in the soil. That's Isaac, our farm manager. Isaac came to us as an intern. That's Ben in the background. Ben was a college graduate. He was on the Oring team, and really a great pair of interns. Well, Isaac's now our full-time ranch manager. And Isaac's holding up about a 4-foot leaf, and that particular leaf is called gamma grass. It's an eastern gamma grass. That's what the buffalo ate. It covered Missouri back in the pre-settler time. When the settlers came into Missouri, they overgrazed it. And then they started plowing it, and they killed it. But guess what? It's still in the seed bank. Those seeds are still there. We didn't plant that. It came up. That's exciting. But look at the diversity in there. That was an old CRP field. It was just a dead layer of thatch. It wasn't intercepting any energy from the sun. Look at the diversity in there. I mean, you got timothy, you got fescue, you got giant ragweed, there's clover, there's some orchard grass, brome, bluegrass. I think we counted 22 different species. Well, what's so neat about having diversity? Well, the more different shapes of leaves that you can have out on your farm, you're collecting more energy from the sunlight. We are in the solar energy business. That stuff's free. So far, our government doesn't tax us for sunlight. And so you need to take advantage of that. That's a big mistake right there. I'm going to show you my mistakes. Look at that. Isn't that some beautiful grass? Anybody know what that plant is?
Buckwheat.
Buckwheat? The leaves look a little bit like buckwheat. I wish it was buckwheat.
Velvet leaf?
What?
Is it velvet leaf?
No, it's cocklebur. The dreaded cocklebur. That's where they developed, where you...
Velcro.
Velcro. That's where Velcro came from, was cockleburs. Folks, they are covered right there. Look at them all. Those get in the tail and on the hair of cattle, and as they graze your farm, it falls off all over your farm, so they seed them. And now that seed will stay in the seed bank for over 100 years. So, I leased this farm. It was all soybean, 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 and when he combined the beans that fall, I told the landowner that bought it, I said, no more beans. What are you going to do? I said, I'm going to turn it to grass. So that's my first year of grass. And back in those days, folks, I didn't have a tractor and I didn't have a brush hog. I do now. If I'd have had it, I definitely would have knocked that down, just because it's right on the blacktop and everybody's laughing at us. There's the blacktop right there. It's a very busy blacktop. And look at that idiot. He's making them cows eat them weeds. So I had taken my eye off of what was important. I was making those cows eat those weeds, and they did. They ate them clear down to the dirt. Everything. They ate the stalk. I even saw them lick off the ground those green burrs, and they ate the green burrs. My idea was I was going to extinguish the seed supply, and there wouldn't be any more cockleburs. Just let the cows eat them, and that would be done. So this is my second year of doing it. And Ian was there in the fall, and he's looking at that, and he's like, Greg, what are you doing? Look, I'm getting rid of the cockleburs. He said, it looks like you're doing a good job. And he said, what you got to do here, Greg, is you've got to act like you don't own that field. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, in the springtime, when does the cocklebur plant come up? It comes up June 1st. So our typical grazing will start about mid-April. He said, go around that field, don't graze it. So in the springtime, it was coming up with good grass. I would go in there and graze that good grass off, about half. Well, then I opened up the canopy for sunlight, and that cocklebur plant was coming. And see, the cockleburs an annual. An annual will always outgrow a perennial in speed. They're fast. Okay? The reason they're fast is they're only going to last 1 year. So it's an impulse to get up there and get a seed on it. So I went around it the next year, and this is what happened. Yeah. I went from that to that. Just by changing my focus. So here's what happened, folks. Those cows ate all that the first year, and then they ate the cocklebur. Well, they ate my good plants down to the dirt. And so what was my root system on my good plants? It was this tall. The cockleburs, they got a free ride, okay? And by waiting another 35 days in the spring and not grazing that, my good grass got this tall. And when I went out there June 1st and pulled it back, I'm like, I wonder what I'm going to see. The ground was covered. Absolutely looked like you took radish seed and just covered the ground. Solid little baby cockleburs. But they're all yellow, the color of a lemon. And they're spindly looking little guys. They couldn't get any sunlight. Whipped them. So the gist of this story is if you've got a problem plant on a certain part of your farm, don't graze that section early in the spring. Let it get up, let it put some pressure on your nuisance plant, whether it's Canadian thistle, maybe it's ironweed or ragweed or whatever. Let your good plants get up above it, and then they can outcompete. Folks, that was 23 years ago. We've never had birds back in that field. This is a field, this is a farm we just leased in 2017. It fastened onto our farm. Again, I didn't seed anything in here. Nothing. I would have thrown a match on that. I was a burnaholic, I'll admit it. I like to burn. It was fun to see a flame going across that was 20 feet high until it went towards your neighbor's haystack. Then it wasn't any fun anymore. So I stopped burning after I met Ian. Ian goes, why are you putting all that carbon in the air? You've got this beautiful cow herd. And you can do it with sheep. Put them in there tight enough to trample that carbon on the land. Feed the soil. Burning promotes plant spacing. It makes the plants get further apart. Grazing promotes plant density. It brings the plants closer together. And that's what we're all about. We're trying to get our plant spacing tighter. The tighter the plant spacing, they're going to crowd out the weeds and the more energy we harvest. Another picture from a different angle. We had a lot of cedars on this farm. We brought the Amish and in one day we cleared pretty much that whole farm. Amish with a chainsaw, they're like the Tasmanian devil. They can flat cut some trees because they can't own a chainsaw in our area, but when they get a hold of one, they like it. Because they have to use a saw in normal life. When they come to Judy Farm, they get to use a chainsaw. I do make them wear chaps because they get a little wild. Kevlar. Wear Kevlar chaps when you run a chainsaw. How many of y'all run chainsaw? How many of y'all use chaps? You're smart. Because I don't care how seasoned you get, when your arms get tired, and you lose a little control of the tip of that blade, it'll get you. Yeah. So this is typical in Missouri. This is a Missouri winter. This is my neighbor. And you can see the cattle are laying in this stuff. And that's not just mud. There's a lot of stuff in it. Manure, urine, and the effluent's coming down into the ditch. That's going down to the creek. Yeah, it's not the best. The cattle, you can see they're covered in mud. Our cattle, that's the same time. This is in January. We're still grazing, even though we got a little snow, we still graze. And we move them. Why am I moving those cows in the wintertime? The grass isn't growing. Why am I moving them? It's because it's the right thing to do. Animals like to be moved. And the more you move them, the more they like it. So by moving our cows in the wintertime, we don't worm them. We haven't wormed a cow in 30 years. Why don't we have to worm them? Because we're not leaving them in this muck. You winter your cows in something like that, and you got hay bales out there, you're probably going to have some parasites in them. And you're going to have to pour some mimicking down their back or something to get rid of the parasites. Well, then you killed your manure paths, and we don't want to do that. This is another mistake that I made. So this was overgrazing. I was strip grazing across this field, and I took it all. I thought I was doing the right thing. Ian came in the fall and he goes, Greg, you might just try leaving a little bit more liver out there. Look at the condition on those cows. They're not packing much weight. These are cows that would be fall calvers. So they brought them to me in the spring, early bred. And you shouldn't be doing that too much to a cow, because when they start losing condition, it's hard to get it put back on. But those cows risk of getting shocked. The full length of that paddock, they reached under that wire with their neck because they ran out of forage. So there's that same farm. Before we cleared it, we took all the cedars off. We left some of the nicer trees. And you can see that would really make a hot fire. It really would. I mean, that's years and years of thatch. This is owned by a judge. And his dad was one of these guys that wouldn't let you cut a tree. None. No trees. Well, when his dad died, I told Kevin, I said, your whole farm's going to be cedars if we don't do something. So he allowed us to take the cedars out. This is rest followed by animal impact. So we rested it, we went in and trampled it on the ground, and this is what came back. There is a ton of forage in there, and today, that was the first year we did it. Today we have a lot more species of grasses and legumes in there. So this would be a picture of what our farm looks like in July. This would be the section of the farm that we didn't graze. So let's go over our rotation real quick. In springtime, the grass is growing fast, you move them fast. Summertime, the grass is not growing as fast, you slow them down. How do you do that? Well, if you got two herds, you want to combine them. One of the biggest tools in your toolbox when you get into a time of the year when you don't get any rain and your grasses aren't growing back, put your herds together. If you've got 3 or 4 herds on there, put them together into one. You're going to grow more grass, you're going to make more money, because you've got a bigger horsepower engine, you've got a bigger group of animals working for you. And when you have two, let's just keep it simple. You got 2 herds, and you're moving them around. Let's say you got 160 acres, and each group has 80. And you're moving them around that 80, and you get all the way around. It hasn't rained, and let's say it took you 40 days, folks. If you put that other herd over here and put them in one, I get it. I know that question is coming, so I'm going to answer it. But Greg, you still got the same number of animals. Aren't they going to graze the same amount of grass? Are they going to overgraze it? Because you've got them on one herd now. Yes? But what I'm trying to do is buy time. I'm trying to buy time out in front of my herd so I can catch a rain. If you can catch a rain, by golly, when you don't overgraze your farm, it's unbelievable how quickly it regrows. What's the other thing you do in July when it gets hot? Well, you should sell off some animals. You need to destock a little bit because your grasses aren't growing as quickly. If you see that your grasses are slowing up, go sell some animals. And you need to know which ones those are. It should be the bottom 10% of your herd. The older cows, the one that has the bad foot, maybe when you're tagging her calf that spring, she knocked you on the ground, get rid of her and her calf, because the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. If the mother's stupid, so's the calf. Get rid of them. The steers are number one. You can get rid of those. They're not going to reproduce. So what you're trying to do is preserve, as a cow-calf fella, you're trying to preserve your best cows. And the longer you wait to get rid of them, the more of them you're going to have to get rid of them. So think about that. So this would be end of July. In other words, we stopped. So we were going around the farm in the spring. We couldn't get around it all fast enough. We left off a full third. We didn't even graze it. We went back to where we started in the spring because that grass had already regrown. It was super tender. It didn't have a seed head on it yet. And the cows just did cartwheels on it. Super, super good production. Super good animal performance. This just continued to get older and older. And people in my area would roll that up into a bale. They had to fire up the mowing machine and the baler, and they went out and rolled that up. Well, you can do that. I'm not saying you can't, but we don't. I look at this as a grand opportunity for me to put a lot of carbon on the land. So this is what we did. We run a hot wire across it. This particular mob of cows was on there at 100,000 pounds of meat per acre for 8 hours. That's what it looked like. So that's what it looked like before, this is what it looked like after. So they ate about a third of it, they trampled about a third of it, and about a third of it still standing. Why do I want some of that grass still standing? It slows the wind up. So the wind, as it comes across your farm, it's all these little windbreaks. And also, it gives a nice place for your meadow sparrows, voles, critters to make a home in there. You don't want it all just flattened on the ground. So there's a close-up picture of it. We call this our litter bank. The first thing I look at when I go into a farm, if I'm doing consulting, I want to go look at the pasture and examine and see if I can find a litter bank. 95% of them don't have it. 95% don't have it. If you don't have a litter bank, you don't have anything to feed your soil. So this is what happens. Keep your eye on it. So this next picture is a month later. Look at the clover that came up in there. And all the grass that young man was holding is now down here. It's all dead. So what I did is I took that tall rank grass, I did this, boom. Once you break that grass blade over, you've broken the sap flow back to the root. You've got a whole pasture full of carbon, and the animals did it for you. You didn't have to fire up a brush hog. You didn't have to fire up a 200-horse tractor and burn expensive fossil fuel to do it. The animals did it. And they liked doing it. They enjoyed it. Check this one out. So now that litter that young man's holding is almost gone. Where did it go? Right there. Look at that. Folks, all that slimy looking stuff you see there, that's all fresh earthworm turds. It's all earthworm castings. Look at that. pH of 7. We need more earthworm food. So what do you need to build to collect earthworms? Right there. You've got to have that litter. Earthworms can't take sun beating on them. Okay? So you got to get something growing up above the litter. And then the litter keeps the soil cool and moist, and then these guys come along. So we don't put any lime down. Jerry Brunetti was one of the smartest soil biologists probably in the world. He's dead. He died of cancer. Jerry was a sharp guy. Agrodynamics, that was his business in Minnesota. And Jerry started studying these earthworms. And Jerry and I went together on all of our farms. He paid for it. And we took soil samples on every single farm. Topsoil and subsoil down 2 feet deep. He wanted to get a baseline because he saw what I was doing. He's like, Greg, this is going to be revolutionary. You've got to get a baseline so that we can go back in 5 years, 10 years and see where you started at. We also did it on the forages. Every single species of forage. He wanted to get a baseline on that. So we've got all that good information. And we come along, this is winter time, and so we graze through the winter. Typically we will get some snow, but this particular winter we hadn't had any yet. Or if we had, it's already melted off. So right here was where the poly wire was at. We just roll up a wire every day, morning and night, and we're not giving them a big area. We treat our stockpile like gold. I will not unroll hay on that. Don't go after and unroll hay on fresh stockpile. Let the cattle graze it first. Unroll your hay back here, because this has already been grazed. And so you're not putting hay over really high quality. What am I talking about this stockpile? So stockpile is any grass that you grew the previous year, gets to this fall period, it's up about like this, and you can put animals in that all winter long, and they can graze that, and they do pretty darn well on it. Because in the wintertime, hopefully you're not calving in the winter, and so your animal's nutrition levels are a lot, animal nutrition requirements are a lot lower. Animals just shine on this stuff. It's better than feeding them hay. The beautiful thing about it, we're moving a wire. We're not starting up a tractor. We're not hauling bales out there. They're feeding themselves. So every day, that animal works for himself, and you don't have to haul a bale of hay to him. You're making money. Every time you have to fire up the tractor and haul a bale to him, it's costing you. Okay, there it is. So this will be about mid-February. You look at one of our grasses that we have a lot of is fescue, and y'all are lucky. You can grow fescue up here. I've seen it. Woodstock, that Villanova family, he had some really nice tall fescue out there. And that was his savior in the wintertime. That stuff stays green, and it's really good feed. There's my snow. I'm proud of that. I'm not in Nova Scotia. There's one. That was one that shut down the state of Missouri for 3 days. We don't get snow like that typically, but we can. So I like to keep a little bit of insurance. But even with that snow, I'm like, okay, I am not going to lock my animals down in a sacrifice area and just feed them. I'm not going to do it. I can't do it. It's against everything in my soul. Because I know it tears up my land, and my animals are not happy when they don't move. So I kept moving them with that. So that's our ATV bale unroller. This guy right here. We put all of our bales out in the fall, and we put them up on hills. So I can back up to them with this. That's 750 pounds. It's a 4-wheel drive, 500cc Honda Rubicon. And so I can unroll hay with that, like this. So that snow is deep enough that the bale unroller, it just kept gathering snow in front of it. So I bladed it. I went up and bladed it. And then I unrolled hay, like that. So by doing this, I didn't have a feed lot. The animals are being moved onto a fresh piece of snow each day. And when I got done, it looked like that. The next year, you could go out there and you can see right where the drifts of snow were. Right. You can see it in the grass growth. In between the windrows of snow, the grass was taller, thicker, and greener. And that was in 2018, so that's 6 years ago. You can still see the effect of what we did there. Then we are moving them. We walk our cattle. We're very fortunate. 13 of our farms are fastened together. So we can just walk them down the road from farm to farm. The sheep are a lot tougher than the cows. Our sheep will not eat hay. They won't eat it. It makes me aggravate. I'll go after I feel bad for them. I'll unroll a bale, and all they do is walk on it. A sheep is like a deer. They like to dig, and they'll dig through the snow, and they'll get that stockpile. The nice thing about sheep is they don't need any water, not in the wintertime. Even with no snow, they don't need water. As long as they're grazing, there's enough moisture in that stockpile, they do fine. Now, if you lock them up in a dry lot and you feed them hay, you'd have to feed them something better than we feed them, because they're not going to eat it. They'll eat alfalfa hay, but we can't buy alfalfa hay around us. It's just too expensive. So they winter on stockpile fescue, acorns, and buckbrush. That's what they eat. We get into ice. We don't like ice. And here's why. So when animals graze that could be 12, 14 inches high, covered in ice. When animals walk on that, folks, it snaps off, just like a piece of uncooked spaghetti. Just pops off on the ground. Well, then they step on it, and it sticks to the ground. They don't get to eat it. So here's a portion of the winter. I'm going to unroll hay. Our ice will stay on sometimes. The maximum is probably 5 to 6 days. Most of the time, it's off in 2 to 3. So once the ice comes off, I'm back moving them again, grazing stockpile. Because I want some insurance out there. My insurance is hay. That's in March. They're still grazing winter stockpile. We don't wean our calves until March 1st. So the bulls go in July 1st. They're in for 60 days. And then they come out. They calve April, May. So by taking that calf, let me explain it's called wintering the calf on the fat of the tailhead. So let me explain that. So you got the tailhead of the cow. It's really fat. These aren't. They've used up a lot of that fat. There's a fat reserve up there on that tail. That one's still got some fat. They're feeding that calf just a little bit of milk. Everybody around us, they all think we're nuts. Well, Greg's still got his calves on the cow. Everybody weans their calves. They're April, May calves. They're all going to wean them in September, October time frame. And if they background them, if they keep them over the winter, they're feeding them grain. 2 pounds a day. I used to do it. Matter of fact, it's required, if you're going to sell them in the MFA Beef Alliance program, they've got to be fed grain for 45 days. They call them bunk broke. They know how to eat out of a bunk when they go into the feedlot, but we don't do that. And I worked with a guy every year. I worked with him for 30 years, and 29. Nice guy. And every year he would complain that the banker took his cattle. I'm like, what do you mean? So I fed that dang cattle charge like he told me to do, and in 45 days he fed up all the profit in his calf. He gave it to the feed company. Purchase feed in a bag, folks. If you're not a grain farmer, you got to buy it to feed the beef animal. It really hurts your pocketbook. So what we do is we make the cow take the calf through the winter on her back. And a good cow can do that. Some of them can't. So if you went and borrowed the money and you're paying interest on that cow, and she gives you a calf in the summer or spring, in the fall, you give her a vacation because you took the calf off, she didn't have to do anything. Well, she's still raising a calf in her gut for a spring, but you should be making her work. And that was very intuitive to me, like, no, you can't do that. The cow will get thin, she's not going to breed back, and it's going to be a wreck. And Gerald Fry, he was the one that studied under Jan Bondsma, and Gerald said, no, they can do it. The right kind of cow. So a cow's got to have a bigger gut like that one. We talked about the solo cup, the angle of the belly going down below. Actually, it's this way, I'm sorry. You've got to have a big gut on your animals to do it. And so we've kind of picked for that. We've got cattle that got big gut, shorter legs, and we make them winter the calf. So March 1st, the calves are taken off and weaned. They're already weaned. They're only getting just a little bit of milk. It's more of an emotional bond to the mother. And that's one of the reasons we don't get our heifers are bred. Everybody says, how do you keep a yearling heifer from not getting bred too early? She's in there with all them bull calves. Why isn't she getting bred? I tell you why they don't get bred. It's because I'm not breaking the mother-daughter relationship. So when you take a heifer away from her mother in the fall, and you wean her for 4 weeks, and you throw her back in that herd, she'll take a bull calf like that. She'll come and eat instantly. But if you don't break that daughter-mother relationship, they don't come and eat. And we treat our heifers just like we do our cows. We're not getting them up in the fall and feeding them grain to make them put on weight. You start doing that, they will cycle, and now you're going to get them bred early. And now you're going to call the vet to try and get the calf out. Because they calve at, heaven forbid, 18 months or whatever. We do a lot of silvopasture work. So in the wintertime, we'll go in and clear out some of the junk trees, and we unroll hay in there, and usually this is what comes up. Lots of different legumes, different grasses. I don't know what happened there. I still don't understand what happened there, because we treated that field the same way. Why did it do that? I don't know. There was some clover seed there sometime. We stimulated it. That's all I can tell you. I call this bruising the soil. So we're bruising the soil with the hooves in the fall. We're speeding the cattle up in the fall, folks. Only taking the one bite and leave, one bite and leave, one bite and leave. Why are we doing that? Isaac and I started measuring in the fall. So let's say the middle of September, we drove a stake in, and we grazed one paddock off to 6 inches, and the other paddock we grazed off to 9 inches. Okay? We went back and made a full rotation. We came back in 30 days. We measured the regrowth on both of those fields. The one we took down to 6 inches, it had grown 2. The one we grazed down to 9 inches, it was up to 15. That's a big difference, folks. That's a lot of extra forage across that whole field. It's because we left a longer solar collector. This solar collector thing's a real deal. It caught more sunlight. Riparian zones is getting to be a big deal all through the Midwest. They're trying to get people to keep animals out of the streams. And I agree, animals will destroy a stream if they're left in it. 365 days of the year, they'll destroy it. It's nasty. Well, here we're doing 8-hour moves, and we've been doing this for 20-some years. All we've seen is more grass, more diversity, cleaner water, and now we got fish in there. Folks, when we started that farm, there wasn't any water in there. None. Well, now we've got all these plants above the stream, it's catching the rainwater, and it's not letting loose of it. It's holding on to it. Did you all know that earthworm tunnels stay in the ground for 30 years? Yep. So when you get up to 25 worms per square foot, think about all the tunnels they're leaving. Well, you want your farm to be a sponge in a rain. You want to collect that water and hold it. You don't want it to run down into the ocean or the nearest river. Hold it on your farm. Water, we talked a little bit about that earlier today in the other talk. Water is crucial. That's not a water source. But my neighbor was using that as a water source. And he'd call me up about every week. He didn't have a crop. He didn't have a head catch. Greg, can I use your head catch? I got a sick cow next week. Greg, I got a sick cow. Can I use your head catch? I'm like, Nathan, what is the deal? Well, I don't know. They're just sick all the time. We got the farm. He went out and visited. The first thing I did is I cut the dam on that farm. I drained it. They're not going to drink out of it. And today that's growing wonderful grass. But that's a swamp. And he was making them drink that crap. There's good water. This is our treatment right there. That's a Gatorade bottle, the one that's sunken in the tank there. And there's a little tablet of hypochlorite in there. And that Gatorade bottle has holes cut in it. So as the animals drink and the water comes into that tank, it's just getting a little bit of hypochlorite treatment. Folks, you can run your arm and your hand at the bottom of that tank all the way around it. There is no bacteria. It cleans it. So the one on top is my bobber. It's holding it suspended. Okay. This is a native warm season grass. It's called Eastern Gamma. That's the one that has the roots that go down 18 feet. 18 feet. It's got roots like a tree. So when it gets hot and dry, it just keeps right on growing. Big Blue, that's another native warm season. The farm that Jan and I just bought in March is covered in that stuff. And when it gets hot, I love it, because it just keeps right on growing. It's non-toxic, it's very wildlife friendly. You can go out there and jump deer out of that stuff. They like to lay down in it. It's just a wonderful grass. It's good for songbirds. There's a cover crop that we drilled into fescue. So that was drilled in the middle of July, and everything we put in was a warm season. So there's Egyptian cabbage in there. There's a grazing soybean, a grazing corn, sorghum sudan grass, pearl millet, sun hemp, and sunflowers. There it is. So that's what it did. We didn't put any fertilizer on that. And here's the crazy thing, folks. The time I drilled it, the time it did that, it never got a rain. It never got a rain. And I mean, it got up like that. Those cattle, I thought they were going to kill themselves when they hit that field easy. They really did well on it. The dung beetles, we need those guys, folks. Look at that. That hole is the diameter of a nickel. he leaves a footprint behind him when he digs a hole. So what he's doing is he's going down in that hole and he's burying one of these. That's a turd. He rolled it up into a dung ball, and the female, she laid an egg in there. A baby larvae, a baby dung beetle. And then they take it right there to that hole, and they'll bury it down in that hole. And then when the little dung beetle hatches out, that's his bottle. Okay? That's what he lives on. And the whole thing is started over again. Why do we need dung beetles? We need them, folks. They get rid of the juice in the manure pad. You've got them here in Canada. I've seen them. I didn't see this big one, but you've got the dwellers. And those are good too. They live in the manure pad, and they're helping you cycle that manure into the soil. But you're not going to have them if you're pouring Ivomac, or if you got a back rub out there. You got a back rub out there, and you got all this insecticide on it. It's going to end up in that manure. And now you've killed your manure piles, and you've killed the dung beetles. We need them. We need them bad. Learn to read your manure. This tells you everything you need to know about that cow. You've got that nice little pond in the middle. You've got these stacked up edges on there. That's telling me that cow is putting on weight. She's not going to get sick. I mean, spend some time looking at that. If you've got a manure pad that's this tall, it looks more like a sheet cake before you put it in the oven to bake it. You've got too much protein going into that cow. Why? Well, maybe you're not moving them fast enough, or they're grazing the plants down too short, they're not getting enough energy, or too much clover, or too much alfalfa. If you get over 40% legumes in your pasture, you can get a very runny manure pile. Or they've got parasites. And a cow that doesn't ever clean up on her tail. So she comes through the spring flush, maybe she's getting too much green, not enough dry matter in there, and that tail's still runny into May and June, she's probably got parasites. You can worm her, but I would sell it after I worm her. That's our setup. It's a little more advanced today, but that was our earlier version. So I've got an ATV. There's my intern, Anna. She's from Iowa State. I'm throwing out like lawn darts. Anna's coming along sticking the post in. These are O'Brien. I love the O'Brien post. I sharpen them. I put them on a bench grinder. I'll make them things sharp. Because I know in the wintertime when I stick one in the frozen ground, I'm going to break that. I'm going to break the foot feet off. But if you sharpen them, we're still using posts that are 15 years old. But I'm using yellow and blue. I don't use white anymore. The white ones, the sun just eats them up. Timeless fence, man, I love the white ones. That's what we use. It doesn't seem like they've got a really good UV inhibitor on those. I've had timeless up now for 12 years, no longer than that, 15 years. It hasn't done anything to them, but those, that's a plastic post, okay? O'Brien's got it figured out. They put the right plasticizer in there. The ones you go buy, the lookalikes, you can grab that post and snap it. If you put it into you right out of the box, brand new, they'll snap. Or these clippies will break off. And of course, when the clips broke off, you don't have anything to hang your wire on. So O'Brien, they're the best. That's a grass-fed South Pole steer. He's not finished. A lot of people look at him and like, you know what, I think I'm going to eat him. He's got the wrinkles in the neck. His brisket down here is fairly full. Pretty good cover all over him, but right there. Folks, that's the tailhead I'm talking about right there. Y'all see it? Watch this next picture. There we go. They need 3 wrinkles. 1, 2, 3. That one's got 4. He's ready to eat. If you don't learn anything about livestock, just remember this. If they're shiny and they got an oily hair coat, they're doing well. If they've got a slick hair coat and they got rid of the winter hair coat, boy, those animals are gaining. They're going to make you some money. Teddy Gentry, that's his breed. Teddy Gentry's the Alabama singer. He's the bass player. Teddy and I are good friends. Teddy he didn't give, I wish he did. He sold Jan and I 22 cow-calf pairs. And Teddy he's a data hound. Teddy is unbelievable. There's a reason they made 40 #1 songs in country and western. Teddy wrote about half of them. But Teddy's a data hound. Teddy got to watching the cows that slicked off in the spring. The very first calves that slicked off, the very first cows that slicked off first in the spring, those are the ones that bred back first. So they were always calving in the first 7 days of calving season. Their calves weighed 50 more pounds than the counterparts. The ones that calved like 45 days later. Their calves are always a little bigger calf. It's all the hair coat, folks. The hair coat's extremely important. I call this a competitive advantage. When you can take a 130-pound ewe and get triplets out of them, sign me up. If I can just get 1.5, sign me up. Because they don't eat as much. Folks, I can run 6 of those ewes for one 1,000-pound cow will eat. It's the same amount of grass. But she's going to give me, the best we've ever done is 2.06. We've done 2.06 lambs per ewe across the whole flock. Well, if you do the math on that, and you're selling them like, we're direct marketing now, seed stock and withers. We've also found out that they sell better at the market if you leave them around. Why is that? In other words, don't castrate them. They grow better. It's just like a bull. We don't castrate our bulls until they're 10 months old. They've got that set of testicles, that's testosterone, that's a weight gaining mechanism. Leave them on as long as you can. Well, sheep, there's no need to castrate them. They still taste the same. You're not breeding with them. You're selling weight. But if you castrate a lamb, you've taken yourself out of the Muslim market. They won't buy them because it's not an unblemished lamb anymore. You took his knickers off. So, yeah, they sell better. We got into this. These are Barbados black bellies, and I kind of had a dream. I haven't done it yet, but I still haven't given up on this. I've got a friend in Texas. He has a large ranch. He's got 40 acres of timber. He fenced it with woven wire. He goes and buys these at the sale barn. That's a Barbados black belly. Now, he had 3/4 spiral, but you can buy them with a full spiral horn. He puts an ad in the Dallas Morning Star, bow hunt. Trophy bow hunt, come on out. You know what he gets for a bow hunter to shoot one of those? $4,500. Guess what he gave for him at the sheep market? $350. That's marketing, that's what that is. And he's the guide. He goes, I think I know where he's at. Well, he fed him that morning, he knows where he's at. The bow hunter sneaks out there and he shoots that ram, and he's got his own taxidermist. They mount him. And the Dallas guy's got the big office on the 44. Look at that trophy ram I shot. So, I don't know, I'm thinking about doing it. Ian says we got to brainstorm. We got to be different. That's brainstorming right there. We ran the sheep with the pigs. These are Tamworth. We didn't give them any grain. They grazed out there with the cattle and the sheep. And somebody told me, well, you can't be lambing with pigs. The pigs will eat the baby lamb. And my question was, I never saw a hog that could catch a baby lamb. They are really quick. And if that hog takes one more step toward that lamb, see her looking at it? She's got the eagle eye on that sheep, or on that pig. I've seen them hit a pig so hard that they knocked him over. Because the pig is getting close and she just, ow! And they'll do the same thing to a guard dog. Folks, if you got a guard dog with your sheep, and he doesn't roll over when he gets hit, and he jumps up and snarls at that ewe, that's a predator. He's going to kill your sheep. You got to get rid of him. I mean, watch him, at least watch him, and reprimand him for that. You might be able to get him out of it. But they need to lay there and go, ar, 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 and just lay there. And that ewe's going to keep hitting him. Because he got too close and around all the baby lambs. A good guard dog's got to lay there and take that. And yeah, guard dogs can be predators too. They can kill your sheep. We couldn't run sheep without guard dogs. We just couldn't do it. We do road moves, so we live in a rural area. This is a gravel road. My neighbor decided to rip out all his fence and grow soybeans. And so I have to put up a wire there, and it's not hot. This side, he's got good fence on. Well, today he went ahead and fenced this side too, so now I don't have to put that fence up anymore. But learn to dig in your dirt, soil. I don't call that dirt, that's soil. Dirt is lifeless soil. It doesn't have any earthworms in it, it doesn't have any structure to it. It looks more like modeling clay. Learn to look at your beef. So this one is a grass-finished steer. He did that in 22 months. He was about a 2-frame steer, and if he takes one more bite, his britches are going to burst. That's you want that ass to wag like that when he walks. It should have a wag to it, a waddle. Okay. There's one thing I don't like about him, and that's the hair coat. He didn't lose all his winter hair coat. He's got a little bit of it hanging on right there. But he still ate really well. This is a spring picture, so the grass is starting to grow. I've got the green grass coming up through my dry grass. So this is the stockpile field that we didn't get to in the winter. That was all grown the previous fall. So when the cattle come in there in the spring, they're dying for a green bite of grass. And they reach in and get that grass, they're getting about 20% dry leaves in there. Folks, if you can have a field of that in the spring, it's better than gold. And that's because the animals are getting a little dry matter, which offsets the very, very high, it's just really, really, really high nitrogen. And they can't metabolize it. It's got way too much protein in it. But with that dry matter, it's like giving them a little bite of hay. With every bite, they get a little bit of dry hay. I love that picture because my cows did that for me in about 8 hours. And boy, you should have saw that 60 days later. It was unbelievable. This is my neighbor with the Columbus method. He puts them in the spring and he discovers them in the fall. And that's what happens to his pastures every year. This is the guy that told my intern, Justin was rolling a wire up in the wintertime, this much snow on. There was grass sticking up through the snow. And he moved 300 head in about 5 minutes. They all went in, they all started eating, and my neighbor's looking over the fence like that. He called Justin over, and Justin never met a stranger. He walks up, "How you doing, Jerry?" Jerry was very plain, looked right at him and said, "You know, what Greg's doing over there might work, but it would never work over here. Got that dang fence line." And when Justin walked off, he said, "Oh, by the way," he said, "Greg gets more rain than we do." He's convinced we get more rain than he does. You know why? Because we always have grass. That's what he said. Greg always has grass and we don't. And we're running 4 times more cattle than he is. 4 times more. Jan and I have been able to double our stocking rate in the last 10 years. Let's look at that numbers a little bit. So when you can double your stocking rate on the same amount of land, what's that do to your input cost? Cuts it in half. We didn't have to go buy more land. Folks, this is, I'm up here telling you, it's the most exciting thing I've ever seen in my life. My banker loves me to death today. They do. They treat us as a first-class citizen now. They do. They didn't used to give us the time of day. Yeah. In Africa, Ian talks about back in the day, back in the 20s and 30s, the banks wanted landowners to be on the bank board. You know why? The successful farmers, they wanted them on the bank board. And that they knew they were making intelligent decisions to run a successful farm. They wanted them on the bank board to make good decisions for the bank. Those days are coming back. Anyway, we took a silver thermometer and I laid it on the ground here, folks. That day it was 108 degrees and I laid the thermometer on the ground. It was 104. I stepped over my fence and I laid it on ours. We had about this much grass in there. It was 82 degrees. from 82 to 104. That's a big difference. Yeah. How much earthworm soil microbes are working in that soil? None. None at all. So my neighbor decided to become a crop farmer. He plowed his grass all up, and this is what happened. He got a 4-inch rain that night, and the next morning he went out to check his beans he just planted, and there were beans that deep all over that field. That dirt was gone. It went down the creek. It went over onto us. This is our grass coming out through our grass. The color of our water is a little bit different. That looks like a milkshake. Go to the lowest point on your farm, folks, ladies. Right after a rain, take a mason jar and go down there and find out where the water's coming off your farm and dip it up. Dip up a full container and set it on your bench and let it sit there for 24 hours. See how much sediment's in the bottom of that jar. That's going to tell you how good a job you're doing at keeping your soil on your farm. Get a spade out there, dig around, look in it, see what's going on. My dad was a row cropper. He liked to plow the land. So when Jan and I started out on this farm, we had a 1/2-inch topsoil. This has got 7 inches on it now. Yeah. Look for spider webs. Why do we want spider webs all over our farm? Somebody in Woodstock said, well, if I did, my wife would leave. She didn't like spiders. I get that. Folks, spiders are your largest predator. All these amphibians and stuff you see that we think are predator or a nuisance, you need spiders. Dr. Jonathan Lundgren, probably the smartest insect person on the planet. He's in South Dakota. Jonathan Lundgren found out that for all these terrible predators that are eating our corn and our beans and all this stuff, when we spray them, we've got to blanket spray that whole field to get rid of that certain pest. We kill 1,400 beneficial ones. Does that make sense? We're trying to get rid of one and we kill 1,400 beneficials? No, that's not the way to go. So in the wintertime, we have more time. We go in and we cut some trees. We'll leave some of the nicer oaks, and then we cut shiitake mushroom logs. We also unroll hay in this area. So folks, this is a fungal-dominated area. That's what this is. When you go into trees, and it's all that is there is trees, you're dealing with fungal soil. To grow good grass, you got to have bacteria in fungal. 50-50. You need a 50-50 ratio. So how do you take 100% fungal and go 50% bacteria? There it is. Hay is a bacterial source, and when you run it through a cow and let her trample on it, eat some of it, now you're getting toward that bacteria. And then we bring the pigs in. Pigs are great for restoring pasture. We get some saw logs. We have our own sawmill now. And then the mushrooms. This is a big one. I got tired of cutting firewood. Got mounds and mounds of firewood. I'm like, what could we grow on those logs? So I took a mushroom course. This guy was really smart. He put an ad in the local paper, and it was $45 for a morning session. And you come out, he'd show you how to inoculate a log. And when you went home, you got one log. He sat there all morning long, chewing the fat with everybody, sitting on his butt and watched us all inoculate his whole log pile. And we paid him $45 to do it. That's a smart chap. Him and Ian would get along really well. So we do teepee style. We've got around 3,000 logs. Jan actually cut them before we left, and they exploded again on her. She couldn't keep up with them, so we let our house cleaning lady, our Airbnb lady. Jan's got a young gal hired now to do our Airbnb, and she came in and she sent Jan a picture. She was just unbelievably gratitude. Folks, these are good for you. That's a whole lot better than any mushroom you can buy in the store. A mushroom grown from an oak log has like 7 times more lignine than one grown on sawdust. Most of the mushrooms you buy in stores today are grown on sawdust. Get them on a log. You all got oak here in Canada, don't you? Folks, these are the tops. These are the tips. They're not the trunk. So the cambium bark area, the sapwood, that's what feeds these. And once you put that inoculant in, they're good for 7 to 9 years. You never have to do it again. Jan sells them to health food stores, somewhere around $9 to $10 a pound. If we get too many, she can't sell them all, she'll dry them. She's got a couple of big food dryers. There's some of the furniture we make from the logs we saw. And talk a little bit about grass genetics. This is a bull that Jan and I bought out of Mexico. There's a client of ours, he's a very, very, very wealthy guy. And so he wanted this seed stock out of Chihuahua, Mexico. Well, he knew if Jan and I went down there, we were fine because we didn't have nothing. So we went down there as bait. That was when it was still safe to go down there, kind of. And John would have went down there, he'd have got kidnapped. So we went down there and we bought these. Folks, these cattle were raised on a closed herd for 75 years. There was never another animal brought into that herd. And so what the old guy did is he just picked out the animals that could survive in that environment. And that's what he bred from. This bull's 1,700 pounds, but he's only about right here. He's not very tall, but he's about that wide. He can look at grass and get fat. And that's what you want. Kevin's bull today on the farm was, he had a nice looking Hereford bull out there. I mean, he had a big old gut, a tight sheath. He wasn't quite as fancy looking as him, but he was still a nice bull. Dr. Elaine Ingham, we've had her at the farm to do soil workshops, showing people how to build compost piles, to compost tea, studying soil samples. This is a quote. I don't like it, but I want to share it with you. Nothing in nature is given. It is won. That's engraved in the United States on a major agricultural building as the kids go to school each day. They got to read that. It's engraved in marble, right at the top of the steps. It's like, what are we teaching our kids today? Unless we get a bigger piece of machinery that can plow deeper or a meaner chemical that can kill that weed, Mother Nature's going to whip our butt. No. Ian's got it figured out. He's like, Greg, nature's been doing it correctly for thousands of years. All we got to do is just follow her lead. Stay out of the way. Do you know I used to wake up every morning and I'd say, what can I kill today? That's the first thing I said. Something's trying to put me out of business. I'm going to go kill it. And once we figured out, wait a minute, let's figure out a way to make money with that, things turned around for us. Remember this, for every species that you can attract to your farm, where they feel safe there, and they can make a living, every species, it supports 8 additional ones. I like that. That's in Africa. Ian has lots of these things living on his farm. That's a kudu. That's the largest member of the antelope family. These things get up to like 1,200 pounds. And they're all over his farm, his ranch. Ian doesn't have a high game fence. A lot of his neighbors have 8, 9 foot tall high fence. Why are those animals on his farm? It's the biology. His bricks is through the roof. The bricks, the sugar. So when you start putting animal impact down and carbon on the land, your bricks, your sugar starts to go up in your plants. More mineralization, more minerals. You grow nicer deer. Well, Ian gets $12,000 for that kudu. And he gets to keep the meat. The European that shot that, he just wants that. On a cape. That's what he's doing. He's caping him. To do a cape mount, you got to start clear back here and peel all that back. But he gets to sell that as bull tongue. How many of y'all have bull tongue? It's not the tongue. It's the meat. Yeah, it's unbelievable. If you ever get around South Africa, I think they sell it in the States a little bit. It's spelled B-U-L-T-O-N-G. It is unbelievable. It's an African group of spices. They mix in the meat and they let it air dry. They don't put it in an oven. It makes jerky look like salami. It's that good. He can sell it. He sells it in town. Yeah, there's no season on them. In Africa, you own the game. You can shoot them any day of the week you want. And I went with Ian on his ranch, and we were moving the cattle that morning. He has a 30-06 sitting in his seat. I'm like, what's that for? He said, in case we see one of them. And I said, he had a silencer on it. Folks, in the United States, you got a silencer on a gun, you better have a permit for it. You're going to go to federal prison. In Africa, he said, no, I can shoot more than one that way. They don't even know the gun went off. He just keeps shooting until there's no more to shoot. I saw a flock of guineas on his farm, 500. 500 guineas. Yeah. Why doesn't he have ticks now? He's not shooting the guineas. Y'all know guinea fowl? They love tick. And he's got a big flock of tick on there now. And they're eating big flock of ticks. A big flock of guineas. I'd never seen guineas like that. They were like sparrows. They were just great big birds flying up. I'm like, oh my God. That's their channel. My YouTube channel, I put 5 videos a week on there. It's free. Didn't cost you nothing. Try it out. That's our website, Green Pastures Farm. Oh, our newsletter. So what we did, folks, on our marketing, and I recommend this to you all. If you have a website, get a newsletter started. That newsletter, it drops into the people that sign up for it, their email boxes. And GoDaddy, that's who we use. It's an app called GoDaddy, and it captures that email. And so when I have a sheep to sell, a flock of sheep, or a guarding dog, or a grazing school, or a bull, it goes on there. And you'd not believe, you get people bidding, because it's dropped right in their email box. We tried advertising in newspapers, like we'd have a bunch of bees getting ready to sell. We put a news in it. No, it just costs us a lot of money. Get a newsletter going where it drops in that person's email box. We're all busy. But most people will check their email every so often. I've got time. I wanted to cover. Here it goes. There it is. I want to cover a little bit about water and fencing, if y'all don't mind. From current slide. Yep. So when we go on these lease farms, you can't afford to go out there and lease a farm and put a lot of infrastructure in it if you don't know how long you're going to have it. And that's why we don't like doing year-to-year leases. I like to get a minimum of 5. 10 is better. I'll try to negotiate toward that 10 if I can. But if all they're interested in 5 years, I will do that. So, good water equals healthy animals. We like to establish some quality water points. I think you can overdo it. You don't need water in every single paddock. But like on Kevin's farm today, if he had 2 water points up on top of that hill, he could get rid of all those cattle trails, every one of them. And he's going to get a lot better manure distribution, okay? He's going to be able to build a longer recovery period, and it's going to give you more flexibility. That's my water source. I wish. This is your all's country, by the way. Y'all got a lot prettier view of Niagara on your side than we do in the States. Isn't that beautiful? That's some serious. How many of y'all been there? Isn't it awesome? Did y'all go down in that cave down there and you feel the ground shaking? That's some pretty powerful stuff. Managed grazing grows big fish. We're finding that in Africa, Ian sees the same thing. When you're getting good grass sward around this, and your fertility starts to go up, and you get a rain, a lot of those really good nutrients end up in that water, and they grow bigger fish. And our landowners, they like to fish, and so that's something we can offer them, a big fish. Gravity-fed water is the best, so I like to keep it simple. I don't like pumps. water tank lower than the source. The larger the herd, you need a bigger water tank. The smaller the herd, you can go to the smaller tank. This is in Chihuahua, Mexico. These Mexicans were unbelievable. Mexican rancher, he had 48,000 acres here. You're getting ready to see what he did. He guttered a darn mountain. That mountain was 8,000 feet tall. He started at the top with a group of guys with picks, and they dug a darn terrace all the way around to the bottom of that mountain with picks. And the last 200 feet, they put it in copper guttering. A 1-inch rain fills this. 1 million gallons. 1 inch will put 1 million gallons in that tank. And no pumps. He's up at the top of his ranch, as you can see. It's all gravity flow all the way down to his 48,000 acres. I saw this in Virginia. There was a guy outside of New York that bought a ranch, a farm, an abandoned dairy farm. He put a 10,000 gallon tank at the top of the hill. And he pumped it full from a pond. And from that tank, the whole farm was fed with gravity. In other words, he used electricity to get that tank full, but every time a cow drank from a tank on that farm, it would drop like a float, like you'd flush your stool. That float would drop down and it'd pump a little bit of water up in that 10,000 gallon tank. It worked really well. So gravity fed, springs are all fine, except now, springs you're gonna have animals in the water possibly. I like keeping them out of the water. This is what we did early on. We don't use that anymore. I use skirts. I put a rock skirt on that, but I didn't have the money for a rock skirt in early. We did this. And the landowners were fine with this because my cattle were not in the pond. And so when I left, I was able to roll this up. Okay. There's our new pond. That's Johnny, my dozer operator. He does a lot of our pond building. We put a pipe in the bottom of the dam. There it is. That's 1 inch rain. We also put hay. So I see so many people build a big lake, and they won't ever put any hay down on it. And if you don't, all that dirt that dozer operator just stacked up, a lot of it's going to go right back into that pond. You're going to lose 2 foot of depth. So old hay covering the fescue. I really seed the fescue. How much fescue is just right for a new pond bank? It's when the seed is touching each other. I've got a broadcaster on my 4-wheeler. It's a herd seeder. It just spins it out. See, when you build a pond in Missouri, we get a lot of clay. That clay's got really low fertility, so you really got to put a lot of seed down. Because only 1 in 10 plants come up. So you're putting a lot down. There's what happens with cattle in ponds. Yep, bless his soul, this is Marshall. Marshall's died. Marshall had that farm his whole life. He never, my God, them cows need to be in that pond, Greg. It gets hot, they need a pond to go into. Well, look what they did. They filled the whole pond with mud. And that cost me $7,000 to dig that out. It wasn't cheap. Look at that.
I bet it was rich though.
Oh, it grows good grass. You should have seen the pollywogs come out. There wasn't a single fish in that pond. They're all dead. The pollywogs could take that excess nitrogen. Pollywog is what? It's a frog. It's not grown into a frog yet. There must have been 20,000 pollywogs in there. But yeah, it was very costly. There's a new pond. That's it, with it cleaned up. It doesn't have to be a big pond. So this is a pond that a landowner, this is the judge's property. I didn't have any water over there. And I went to the judge and I said, you probably need some water for your deer. He goes, yeah, I could. So he paid $500 and I paid $500. And we made her deep. And now we've got a rock skirt on that pond. If there's no water on it, I'm going to build a pond on there for the landowner as long as I can deduct it off the cost of the lease. Protect your water valve. If you don't, a cow will get a hold of that float and she'll rip it off. They like playing with them. And a cow's stout. They get their tongue on that and they'll pull on it. And you're gonna come out there and there's gonna be water going everywhere. Just put something over it. This is a pond that we let cattle in intentionally. So when I leased that farm, that would have been in 2001. And I went to Jack. Folks, there wasn't any water in that pond, hardly. He spent $10,000 on this dam to get him a good fishing pond. And he was sick about it. It wouldn't hold any water. And it had a little pool down in the bottom of it. And so I went to Jack and I said, Jack, he lives in the city. I said, Jack, what if I fed hay on the base of that dam for about 2 weeks? And he goes, Greg, go for it. I don't have a pond the way it is. So we brought in those big Charolais cows, and I unrolled hay on that for it's probably around 10 days. Right on the face of it, all the way down to the water. Matter of fact, I was using the pond as their water source. What little water was there. And the rains came that spring, and boom! It's never dried up since. Those cattle stomped that hay into where that water was going out of that pond, and they sealed it. Now, Joel Salatin, you hear him in one of his books talks about using pigs. He'll actually sprinkle corn on the face of the dam, and he'll lock, 8 or 10 big old holes. He calls them squealer sealers. And he'll put a wire in it and make them holes go in there and root that up. I've never tried holes, but I bet it would work. That's an acre pond. That's on one of our deer leases. That's Kruger Park in Africa. Aren't those awesome critters? Yeah, they're pretty cool. This is Ian's watering point in Africa. So he's got 4,000 head of cattle coming down the bank and watering, but now he's got a hot wire over here. They can't go on across. And so he goes the full length of this ranch with this big river. I call that big. Maybe in Canada you call that a creek. Anyway, he's watering 4,000 head. There's fish in there, massive fish. They even found a hippopotamus in there. He didn't tell the locals because they'd have came out and shot him. You know what kills the most people in Africa? Hippopotamus. They just run over you. They got a foot on that big round. 5/8 diameter pond siphon. So here, this is the first year that I had Steve's pond. Steve, my lifetime lease landowner. Jan and I got a lease on his farm. He lives in Dallas, and he's like, Greg, you're not using my pond with cattle. I don't want them in it. I'm like, fine. So I got a garden hose, and we put a Filmac float right here. That's a garden hose going up over the dam. And it's got 400 gallons in it, and we fed 250 head of cows with that. Right? Siphon systems work great. I don't want to get into all this. That's just, there it is. So this is our winter system. This will work clear up to 25 below zero. This pipe right here, that hose, has got a clevis on it. And over here, this is hooked to a hydrant. The hydrant's turned on full flow. This is a 5/8 inch garden hose going away from the tank 50 feet. And I've got the end of it raised up off like that. And so it's almost the diameter of my pen going out 24/7. So there's always water coming in. So you go out there in the morning, I mean, it can be really freezing cold. There's no ice on that tank. It's because there's a young calf sitting there drinking all night long. Constant flow, it can't freeze. Now, if you get tight, and I've done this, I'm like, I don't like, I used 200 gallons of water last night keeping it from freezing, so I'll raise my pipe up a little higher. And now you got a diameter of that. You're playing with fire, it's gonna freeze. And then you got a frozen tank. Landowners, they don't like their ponds with cattle in. We fence them off. Keep them out of the pond. There it is. So that'd be the siphon in the winter. I put a wire over the top of it, because if you don't, The cows will walk on it and they'll break it. That hose is very brittle when it's 30 below zero. You don't want them stepping on it. There's another picture of it. On our creeks where we get big rains and the water comes up, I always had to clean up my water gaps. It's a real pain because the brush all gets hooked in your whatever material you have down there. This works awesome. So the rain comes, it does that. So the water can come up and it goes under my water gap, and when the water level comes back down, it goes back to that position. And the cattle can't get underneath it. That works for a sheep too. We use these, the old pal, I've still got some of these in use on the sheep farm. Those work. I love these tanks. This is a 50-gallon. It's got a Job Mega Flow on it. There's only 40 gallons of water and they're feeding 350 head of cows. 60 PSI, 10 gallons a minute. Here's the trick. These rubber sidewalls, those that have a rear tire on a tractor, I cut them out and I lay them out to the side so that when they drink, they can stand on them. What's a cow do when it drinks? They drink. They pick their head up, they look around, and the water dribbles out. When you got 350 of them dribbling water, what do you got? You got a mud pit. Not if you have this. So I've got a little trailer. We dump the water out and we move it to the next quick coupler. And we have one tank for the whole farm. That's it. We got one 50-gallon tank for the whole farm. I do have a backup in case the cattle would break it. But you don't need a bunch of tanks. I like moving it around. You notice I've got a long hose on it here. I can move that water tank 50, or if I have a 100-foot hose. What's the advantage of moving that hose around? That's right, you're spreading your manure and your urine and your animal impact. Remember, that is a magnet. It's drawing manure to it. I don't like these. They're expensive, and they just don't work as well as our tire tanks. There, I love these. So we use the earth-moving tires, and we fix those up for a water tank. We put a landscaping beams around the edge here to keep the rock from spreading out, and it's also got geotextile. If you put geotextile down, the rock will not go down in the dirt. That's that chlorine tab that I was telling you about. There it is. If you don't put that little brick on the bottom, cows will get their tongue on that and they'll pull it out of there. Just playing around with it. This is the ratio though, folks. That's 1 ounce per 400 gallons. So if you've got a 100-gallon tank, take a screwdriver and a hammer and break that thing into 4. Just put 1/4 of that tablet in there. There it is installed. In the wintertime, we get ice. I just use a bucket to scoop it out in the morning. We're big into fishing. I like to fish, my landowners like to fish. So we build a new pond, we put fish covers in them. I'll put cedar trees on 50-foot centers, and those cedars have a concrete block tied to them. So when the ice melts, they go down. I don't like putting them in the center of the pond. And that's because there's no fish out there. Your fish are all in the first 8 feet of water. That's where your oxygen level is the highest. And the Missouri Department of Conservation, their fishery division, did a study. They built 2 ponds identical. One of them they put cedars in, the other one they didn't. And they stocked them exactly the same. And they measured the weight gain over 5 years. It was double. The one that had cover in it, the fish gain was double. Why is that? Well, all the bait fish had a place to go hide and breed without getting ate. We've got river otters now, thanks to the Conservation Department. They gave us that little ditty to set on. Yeah, we got 3 million farm ponds in Missouri. We call them guppy ponds. The otters come in and just wipe them out. Not if you have fish covers. The fish can actually get, some of them can escape the otters. That's gravity fed from a pond above. There's a installed earth moving tire. This is what it looks like in the bottom. So that's my tank. My flow coming in, that's Sac Creek. Takes 5 bags of Sackcrete up to that bottom, and there's my drain. I can actually drain the tank once a year, get in there and clean all the gunk out. I like a 2-inch brass valve. I've watched 30 cows drink out of that tank on a hot day. They can't affect it. It keeps up with 30 cows. And that's gravity, that's no pressure. There's a close-up. Folks, don't neglect this. I hate to see cattle stand in mud. And rock is expensive. And in my area, it's very expensive. I don't want to be hauling rock every year. I've never hauled another load of rock on an earth moving tower, ever. And that's because I keep it around there. I stake it with fiberglass rock. Sheep don't need any water in the wintertime. The pigs, that was their winter water. We just dumped it at night. If you don't, it'll freeze solid. This is our summer for the pigs. So everything in there is steel. If you don't put steel in there, the hogs will chew it. And you'll have water going everywhere. That's the chicken waters. We had a married couple that was raising 600 layers. That was their chicken water. So it was all gravity fed, and that worked pretty good. How many of y'all have heard of these? The plastic quick couplers. How many of y'all have used them? You like them? Really good for spring, summer, and fall. They don't work so well in the winter because they will freeze, but it's a great way to get water cheaply across your pasture. So in Jan and I lease a farm, we'll put these in all the way through the center of it. We'll just hook on to a hydrant. We'll run a 3/4 inch polyethylene pipe the full length of the farm, and we may put those every 500 feet. Well, or if you want them closer than that on a smaller farm, maybe put them every 100 feet. Folks, this female is only $15. That bottom one is $4.95. So for $20, you've got a water point. I'm going to go through these a little quicker. That's a Gallagher full flow valve. I love these. They don't stop up because the water comes out of that hole. It's a big hole. Those ones that had a little drilled hole in them, they don't work. Not on ponds. I love this flow. That's called the Joe Mega Flow. You can get those through Powerflex. There it is. It has a screen on it. So let's say a cricket comes through your water system. This screen will catch that cricket. And if you don't have that, it goes on into your float. It'll get in there and stop up your water, and you don't have any water for your livestock. Fencing, I like high tensile. There's my distance. That's a 5-wire fence. 7, 13, 19, 29, and 41. That's the chickens. They had 2 of those, and they had there's 300 hens in each one. There they are laying. These are pretty cool. So at night, they would put those up so the chickens didn't roost in their nest. And their eggs didn't even need to be clean. They were perfectly clean because the chickens didn't poop in the nest. This dog was amazing. They had a dog in there with him, and that dog, you let him out, he would grab a chicken if you weren't there and he'd play with it. And he'd finally give the chicken a heart attack. And so they put him in that. And when they go gather eggs, she'd let the dog out, and that dog would run around that. It's about acre and a half pen. He'd run around there just 90 to nothing. And when Bobby got ready to leave, she'd walk over to that dog and she'd hold her hand out. She'd give me my egg. There was a hen in that flock that laid an egg out there. And that dog would go find it. And he'd have it in his mouth all slobbery, and he would give her that egg. He never broke it. He didn't break it. He'd wait for her to leave, then he'd eat it. There's a cattle rotating with the chicken. The problem we found with the large herd, we couldn't move the chickens fast enough to keep up with the cows. Just couldn't do it.
How many hens do you have?
Of what?
Cattle.
Cattle? We range from about 380 to 500 head, depending on the time of year. There's our fencing. This is a time saver, folks. Jan nicknamed this the fence jumper. And I got to looking at that, I'm like, you know what? I've got a guy in town that made that for me. Let's put him to work. And so we just started selling these. And Jan ships them out for us. They bolt onto it for you can drive over the fence without getting off. It is a time-saving device. Somebody yesterday at the farm said they built one of them. They saw it, and you can build them. We get them powder coated now, and it's another product that we're offering. Don't use steel posts if you can help it. I like timeless. I love those for my fence. I don't need any insulators. They're pre-drilled, they're pre-sharpened, and they've got a UV coating on them. And you can get them in half-foot increments all the way from 4 foot. What's the tallest one they sell?
8 feet.
8?
Yeah.
People say, but oh, Greg, timeless posts are expensive. Are they? Go build a barbed wire fence. You put a steel post every 12 feet. Anybody bought a brand new steel post lately? A 6.5 footer?
$16.
How much?
16.
16 bucks. This one would be is this a 5?
That's a 5 foot, yeah.
It's a 5 footer.
The 5.5 or 1330.
When we get home, we got a 200-acre farm. This is what we're using. We're using the 5.5 footer. Folks, you can put 5, heck, every 3 inches there's a hole?
Yeah.
Every 3 inches. So you can decide exactly what post spacing you want, and we just pull the wire through, okay? On recycled wire, we roll up, I told you Isaac and then rolled up 48,000 feet of high tensile. Well, there's clips all through it where we join the wire together. You can't run it through there, so we just wire it on the outside. That works fine too. We had a tree fall on one of these in an ice storm. And I mean, it bent it clear over to the ground. And I was busy trying to keep the cattle fed and everything. Finally, after 2 weeks, I'm like, I need to go cut that tree off. And when I did, I'm like, that post is ruined. It was clear over on the ground. And so I left it, and I came by about a week later, and that dang post that came up to here. I'm like, what? In another 2 weeks, it was right back there. It's still there to this day.
Can you buy those in Canada?
That guy right there.
The Nova Scotia dealer, right there.
What's your name?
Pierre.
How do they get a hold of you, Pierre?
Acres. I've got some cards here at the end.
You need to put them up here, people can grab a hold of them.
Will do, yeah.
Folks, here's the deal. We've got 22 farms. I do not have time to walk around my farm every night when I got a short. I am not going to do it. You can't. You don't have time in the day. Don't put steel posts out there. Every single steel post is a potential ground rock. Now, I understand if you've got the steel post out there and people want to buy these little clippies that clip on there, don't do it. I did it. And deer hit those things, they'll knock them off. What we use is a timeless 4-footer on an offset. We'll come out 4 inches from that fence, we'll drive it in, and that's my power source all the way around that whole farm. I do not, if I got steel posts out, I'm going to take them out. I just don't have time to deal with it. Here, you don't have a problem.
What's the max spacing you'd go on that on level?
On level ground, probably 20 to 25 feet. What's the max you've went? Now I'm talking perimeter, 5-wire fence.
So 5 wire, I mean, 20 feet is common.
Yeah.
I use, for horses, 20 feet, you can push it. On the heavier post, on inner fence, I've got 60-foot spacing.
Yep, absolutely. On paddock divisions, where you run 1 wire, I'll go 45 feet.
Yeah,
I've got my perimeter with that on 30s.
On 30s, never had any trouble.
yeah, I use
So
7.
let's talk about that a minute. I just told you for a good steel barbed wire fence, if you get your post spacing much more than 12 foot apart, cattle are going to be sticking their neck through it, and now you got loose wire. Well, you can run one of these every 20 feet or 30. Man, the biggest cost of any fencing system is what? It's a post. So we went from 12 feet to 20. Is it expensive? No.
Keep in mind.
And they got a lifetime, they got a 20-year warranty on them. If the darn thing breaks, call it timeless, this thing, another post.
And they've been around that long, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, and they're made in the U.S. Keep them Tennessee boys busy down there. Just tell them Greg Judy sent you.
4-wheelers do a number on them though.
Yeah, I've run over them. If you hit them square on a cold day, you can snap them off. Here's the key, folks. Do not drive that post down to that hole. They all get them deeper in the ground. No, the closer you get that hole to the ground, when you bend on it, now it's got something to bend again, it'll break. Keep it away from the ground.
And they're marked 18 inches up, they're printed.
Yeah, it's printed on, right there.
Very tube.
What happens when you hit a rock?
Move it over or keep hitting it. Folks, the owner of Timeless Fence, Russ Israel, he came to our grazing school and he wanted to take out my fence right in front of my grazing school. I'm like, I kind of like that fence. It was all fiberglass post. I'm like, you're gonna replace it with these? I'm like, it looks, that's kind of wimpy looking post. Well, I let him do it, and he hit a tree root. And I mean, he had a porta power on it. You know, one of those, like a jackhammer.
Yeah.
I'm like, Rush, you're gonna have to pick that up and move it over. He said, Greg, just give it a minute. I'm like, he was this far from a great big tree, and that post was not moving. He kept it. It went through it. I still can't believe it, but it did. So Jan and I went to help me, Jan, Tucson, Arizona. 20 miles from the Mexican border. We put in a 480-acre farm with these on 30-foot spacings. Folks, we went through Caliche. It's concrete. It's desert. And I put a driver on this. When I hit it, he went flying through there. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so we went and got a water pick. It's like a washing a car, one of those big wands. It has steel. It blasted a hole in the ground. And then we put them in. They're still there today. Tucson, Arizona. You talk about hot. It's 112 degrees there almost every day in the summertime. And they're still cranking. He hasn't broken a post yet. Here it is. So this is where I run my Timeless. On the outside, this is sheet fence. So here I ran 3 wires. There's my sheep fence. Folks, if I'd have known today that I could break sheep to 2 wires, I wouldn't need all them wires. But I didn't know. Sheep can go down to 1. It takes a little training. We're still in that method now. But we had them to 1 wire. There's the charger. Now, you can't buy Stafix anymore. It's been bought out by Speedrite. That's the best charger made in the world right there. Get you they come with a compass. If you get the big ones, I think those come with them. Man, this thing will save you hours. That arrow is pointing in the direction of your short. You don't just take off walking willy-nilly. You put it out there on the fence and beep, 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 beep. It points the direction you got short. This is your KV up here on top. Folks, that one will light you up. 9,300 volts. What's the 28 amps telling me? That's how much load I've got. That's vegetative load. Or it could be a piece of wire touching your fence somewhere. Talked about that. 3-foot ground rod per joule of energizer. 15 joule, you need 45 feet. 10 feet apart for your ground rods. Use the good ground rod clamps. Those are good ones. I like those. Check for electric. Don't be switching from copper to steel. Use a galvanized steel ground rod. Don't use copper. Those are fine. They're visible. They're expensive. That gate right there is $8 to $10, and that's what happens. Put a cow runs through it. All of a sudden, you got a 40-foot gate instead of a 16-foot.
Those are $46.99 in Canada.
Huh? How much?
$46.99 in
Oh.
Co-op and Bridgeville.
Look at.
Folks, you
at
can't do that.
Applebee's. You got like half that price. So.
Where's that?
Because we sell all the Timeless that they bring in, all the pasture management, so pretty much all the accessories we have for
Yeah.
reasonable amounts.
Yeah. I like them from the fact that they do spring back, but man, when the cow runs through them, they're pretty much done. When I was on the cheap, folks, I didn't have any money. I'm serious. I made my own gate handles. Look at that. That's a piece of high-tensile wire ran through a tube. Poured full of epoxy, scrap epoxy that I got at work. I've probably got 400 of those handles. You run over that with your tractor, you're not going to hurt it. You may poke a hole in your tire. You run over that. the tractor, it's not gonna feel good on that fence post, or on the handle, it's gonna be broken. That's a really cheap gate handle there. Hey, poor man got poor ways, right? If it works, don't worry about it. Don't unroll high tensile wire without a spinning Jenny. We had a neighbor, freshly married couple. And they said, Greg, we want to build some fence. Would you help us? I'm like, yeah, I'll be there on Saturday morning after I move the cows. I got there at 7:30 after I moved the cows. I heard them down in the brush. And there was words coming out of their mouth I won't repeat. And they were at each other, cussing each other. And they got down there and they cut the sprint. See, every one of these brand new comes with a steel strap, 4 of them. They'd cut them. And they were going to unroll it. You don't want to unroll high tensile wire. It's like a springy. They explode. That wire was over half the size of this room. And she was cussing him and he was cussing her. And 7 days later, they're divorced. They were. They only stayed married about 3 weeks as that dang spinning Judy.
Wasn't meant to be.
You can set the tension right there by tightening that nut down. I like to use a 4-wheeler if I'm building fiberglass. If I use fiberglass posts, but if you're using timeless, you got to do it by hand because you're pushing them through those holes. I like to leave somebody at the Jenny, and that person at the Jenny is turning it. So when he turns it, the person pulling, man, it makes it a lot easier to get that wire up through there. That's a contractor grade. That comes from Powerflex. That's a good spinning Jenny. This is in New Zealand, Kiwi Tech. We were over there. I did 4 schools in the North and South Island. This is what this guy was using. We moved 30 different groups of animals that morning and never got off the 4-wheeler. That dang 4-wheeler was picking up the post. Over here is a servo motor. It's rolling up the wire. You never get off the 4-wheeler. That's our post that we use on our lease farm, so I buy those from the company I used to work for. Folks, make it look sharp. When you're in the leasing land business, make it look nice. That's an old gate, but I painted it in aluminum, a nice painted white post fence down through the landowner came out. You know, she wrote me a letter, the wife did. She said, Greg, we've owned this farm for 35 years. And Saturday, we brought them out. We showed them what we did. Jan made a really nice grass-fed beef dinner. And she said, Greg, that's the most enjoyment we've had on our farm in 35 years. We still have the farm. He's dead. You know what the wife told her son? Don't you dare raise that rent on Greg and Jan. That's what she said. She said, we don't want to lose them. Folks, that people get emotional about their land, you take good care of it. You're building a relationship, or that's what you should be trying to do. There's a beast. That's why I married Jan. Jan was on the other side of that, and I was on this side, and her and I, we drove all those big corner posts. We didn't have interns in those days. Any woman that can run that, I'm going to marry. Thank you, honey. I love you. She is. She's stout. I found out something about Jan, though. You got to give her a Coke. If she doesn't have her caffeine, she's not a happy camper. And when she gets hungry, make sure you bring something to feed her. She's like a rabid dog when she gets wild. When she gets hungry, she stops working. Exclusion zone, what's that? That's where we lock animals in. There's 300 head, and they're on 150 feet by 150 feet. And they stay there for 10 minutes. And when they're on there for 10 minutes, it looks like you took a floor broom and covered the ground with manure and urine. That spot will be the best grass on your farm. So if you're going to move your cows, make them work. Put that little exclusion zone in right where you open the gate up in the morning and let them do that for you. Don't leave them there longer than 10 minutes. That's how we power it up. So we just lay it over the fence, and it's touching right here. It's powered up. If you don't believe me, reach out there and touch it. That's our sheep. Poly tape gates. It'll keep in guard dogs too. I like fiberglass corners because I have access to them. If I didn't have access to them, I'd be using the A-frame from Timeless. That's a good corner as well. There's some of our fiberglass. That's solid fiberglass 3-inch. It's got 1,500 strands of fiberglass in it. Super style. There's the Timeless. That's what they call the H-brace, isn't it?
That's their.
It's the old style.
Yeah.
I like these A-frames. I don't have a picture of them here, I don't think. There's Russ. There's that post he drove right there. It's right next to that big honey locust tree. I want to stop there because I want to take some questions. And I don't want to just sit up here and talk to everyone. Anybody got any questions or comments about what we talked about? Let's see, yes, sir.
You were running hogs, how did you keep them from rooting and turning it over?
So the question on hogs, when they're running with the cattle, how do we keep them from rooting? They're rotated. So they're rotated twice a day. They didn't have time to root. And we did put the big ring right there in the middle of the nose. And that pretty much slowed them down. The hogs ate clover. That's what they ate. They just take the top off that red clover. They would eat acorns, hickory nuts, walnuts, snakes, whatever they could catch. Avocados. We fed them avocados. The reefer truck quit, and he had 50,000 pounds of avocados. And so we started giving them all the avocados, and them pigs love avocados. And they would, you ever hear a pig eat? I love the sound of them eat. Just, and that seed would come out, and pretty soon I was like, what the heck? There's no way. Someone got another bucket, and I threw it out there. Sure enough, they grab them up. Out comes the seed. Out comes the green avocado sticker. They will not eat a green avocado sticker. They could feel it in their mouth and mush. You ever watch a pig eat? That tongue's going like that the whole time. And they got a washboard for a mouth, so they can feel it's not food. It doesn't go down the gut. Yeah. Yes, sir.
For water, how clean does it need to be for
The
cattle?
cleaner, the better. So I have a rule, if I wouldn't drink it, I don't give it to a cow. That's not exactly true, because we use pond water. I'm not gonna drink pond water unless I was really thirsty, then I might. Try and get it as clean as you can. The cleaner the water, the better they do. The higher the weaning weights too.
The bacteria affect them like it affects us?
Yep. You know how I found out about that? Mark Bader. Mark Bader came to my farm and gave a farm tour while I was in Kentucky. He called me up and said, Greg, your water stinks. It's got bacteria in it. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's coming off a pond. I've got the pond fence. There's no cattle in the pond. He said, your water stinks. He said, you need to do that. So he told me about it. And sure enough, when I got home, I put my hand, there was a slime on the inside of that tank. I don't have slime anymore. Yep.
The tablet?
Yep, that tablet did it.
How are the cattle drinking though?
So, great point, Jan. So the cattle, Mark said, watch your cows drink. When they walk up to the tank, if they're licking at the water, and they're walking around, they're trying to find this place in that tank that doesn't stink. And so your cattle are licking, they should walk up, put their head down, and they should drink. They shouldn't be worried about anything else. They're walking around, and same way on your pond, if they keep walking around your pond, they're trying to find a place that doesn't smell like manure. Yep. Yes, sir.
2 winters ago, I stripped the pine off the original farm. There's some native grass growing there. I've got a very invasive species called glossy leaf buckthorn. And where they hauled wood out, that's growing where the wood was. It's growing this glossy leaf buckthorn. I paid $6,000 and had 3 acres cleared off. There's still another 6 acres there. I wasted my 6,000. What can you do? It's like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
Nothing
know what it
related?
is or not.
Have you tried sheep? Will sheep eat it or goats?
Well, I'm scared of coyotes. I'm scared of coyotes.
Yeah.
Would you graze? Would you graze? Like they will, the cattle will eat the buckthorn leaves. It's not like they eat them and they will gain off of would you consistently keep them in there and stress that buckthorn out?
I would try and get as much carbon unrolled on that buckthorn as I could. And when you unroll the hay, carbon being hay,
Yeah.
put the cattle in there with a poly wire and lock them in there. Make them eat that hay and stomp it and poop and pee on it. That's gonna be your best treatment. It's gonna be the most economical treatment.
The buckthorn is growing at a rate of about 3.5 feet a year.
Yeah, so you need to get something in there to trample that on the ground. Buckthorn is a carbon, it's a material that, folks, there's never been a weed grown that eventually doesn't fall on the landscape and the earthworm eats it. But highlight it, high speed that by putting animals in there. Put animals in, you're not gonna heal it without ruminant animals.
Would you spring the money for second cut hay, or would you?
I would try and get some consumption on it through the cows. If you're gonna feed hay, make sure it feeds the cows. If you bought junk hay, you're gonna have to put a protein source in there, like a molasses tub or something. Because if they eat junky hay, they're not getting enough energy, your cows are gonna lose weight. You don't wanna do that.
So it's just better off just buy some good second cut hay and unroll it and let it there.
Yeah, but now, that's a great question, by the way. Folks, the higher quality of hay that you buy, the better bang for your buck for the fertilizer. Okay? So really crappy hay isn't got as good a fertilizer in it as maybe second cutting high quality hay. So, yeah. Somebody else, yes, sir. I'll get you next.
Do you try to up the legume content of your pastures, and if so, how do you do it?
I do on Hunter's property. It's the first thing I do. I frost seed in 3 pounds of red clover. I might even do it in the fall. I want to get it on as quickly as I can. And I inoculate it. Inoculate your clover seed. You can buy a bag of inoculant. I dump it in my red clover seed in my spin seeder, so it's inoculated. Inoculated red clover seed fixes more nitrogen in the nodules. But if you can get 30 to 40% clover on a hunting property, you're going to grow better deer and you're going to attract turkey. It's a win-win. And you're going to grow better grass. There's a lot of nitrogen in the air, already here. We just need the legume. Are you familiar with that trading mechanism that goes on? Yeah.
Have you ever tried putting it in with your mineral?
Yes, I did. I didn't get that good a stand on it. I've even thrown clover seed on the back of my cows when you go through the gate. But I'm going to try that. And as the cows graze, the clover seed's falling off their back. Yeah. No, spin seeder, 3 pounds to the acre. Yeah. I can spread 40 feet in one pass with my herd seeder on my ATV. I can cover a lot of ground quickly. Yes, ma'am.
It's a really quick question. I've been fascinated listening to you today, even about your animal husbandry and like what you're looking for in animals. And I was interested that you're letting your steers grow and then nutting them at 2
Let my
months.
bulls go before I steer.
Yeah. What about sheep? Do you do the same?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
what's the
We didn't ban a single ram this year.
yeah at all?
They all went to the older rams. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Folks, a ram lamb can breed a ewe when he's 16 weeks old. 16 weeks. In 4 months, they're sexually mature. Get them out of there. Otherwise, you're going to be lambing in the middle of winter. You don't want to do that up here in Canada. Unless you got a barn. And then I guess you can do that. But I'm not going to lamb in a barn. They do better out on grass. Yep, they do better in grass. They just do better. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Would you inoculate bird's foot trefoil if you were trying to?
Absolutely. Yeah, inoculate bird's foot trefoil, alfalfa seed the same way. There's an individual inoculant for each one of those. So you want to buy a bird's foot trefoil inoculant. Yep. If you want to really get sincere about it, I used to spread a tarp in my garage. And I would put that seed down on that tarp, and then I'd spray it real lightly with sugar water. Just warm sugar water, just spray it. And then I'd put my inoculant on it and mix it all up. Your hands get all black. But let that stuff cure overnight, and the next morning, that seed is black. And it's got a good hardened shell. Folks, watch this pre-inoculated stuff you buy today. It's got that green cover on it. That's got the neonicotinoids in it. It's killing your soil life. Y'all familiar with what I'm talking about? We don't need that in our soil.
Kills the bees too, right?
Yeah, and hammers our insects, absolutely. Yeah. All right, any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
You're castrating at 10 months. 10 months, right?
10 months is when we castrate the bulls, yep.
And, what method are you using?
Cow crate bander. I love it. It's a big old bander. It's got a band about the diameter of your finger. You run it around the nuts. It's got a steel crimp on it. You can't fail with it.
Not surgery.
You just crank it up. It's a ratchet like you tighten a bolt. It's actually a ratchet, and it pulls that band up so tight till it stops. You can't ratchet it anymore. And you take your handle and you bend it down, and it crimps that steel crimp up on there. And you pull your razor blade out of your back pocket. It's a one-sided razor blade. You reach up in there and cut that off. But before you do that, make sure you got a young, stout guy like this holding the tail straight up over the back. They won't kick you. If you go at an angle, you can get kicked. Oh, 5cc tetanus shot under the skin. A killed vaccine, not a live, a killed vaccine. And we've never lost one in 25 years.
Does it cut in the skin or
No, it just cuts the blood flow off.
Okay.
And the animals will lay down sometimes, just him kind of doing that. And then an hour later, they're out grazing. And the testicles just fall off. Yeah. They dry up, they can't get any blood flow.
What's the name of it?
Cow crate. CALLICRATE. Folks, there's one more tool, and I know you ladies on the back, you're going to close this thing down, but there's a great tool out there. It's called Google Planimeter. That's what we use to measure our land on these farms we're leasing. Before I lease it, I want to see how much acreage is out there that I can run cattle on. Go to your Google Planimeter, PLANIMETER. And right underneath there, there'll be another little subheading called ACME, ACME. Click on that. Bring up your farm that you're looking at. It'll tell you to the nearest tenth of an acre how much open land you have, just by taking your mouse and clicking points. And it can be jagged shape, it doesn't matter. To the nearest tenth of an acre. Before you lease land, make sure you know how much land's out there you can graze. It takes 40 acres of timber to equal 1 acre of grass. So if you're going to build a fence and get water and go through the trouble of leasing it, make sure there's some land out there to graze. Okay? Thank you all.